And welcome, Echo fans. Welcome all around the world. Woo! What it takes to put on a show. I'm so happy to be here. I know TTao's happy to be here. I know Alduine is kicking it off. He's chilling out. I can see him. He's vibing. He's got a smile on. He's got a pretty cool background, and he's got some super sick meta to bring to us. As usual, we've got some replay files queued up for you guys. We're going to be diving in. We've got community VODs rolling. We got the music going. We're chilling. The animal, I am not saying that, but Alduine is in the chat. If he wants to reply, he can reply. Anyway, TTao, how are you doing, my friend?
Good, good. So excited to be here. We have Alduine coming here and talking with us a bit more about defense this time. So before we had a chance to talk about like insane stack defense, we had a chance to talk about stunning, and I think defense is exactly the place we should be talking about. And on the topic of defense, on Team Triangle there is multiple goalies, so we're gonna be talking about some very interesting stuff today.
Cool. And it looks like folks are saying TTao is very quiet. So maybe TTao, if you could say something else. Oh, they saw the slider. Oh no.
What about now? I also up my mic. How's everybody doing? We'll see how it goes.
Well,
it should be like 30% loud.
The music is loud. All right.
We'll
All right. We'll turn down the music. Turn down the music just a little bit.
We're gonna get all the music.
It sounds like you're.
on the wrong mic. Okay, let me check that real quick. No, this should be the one. Input device. It should be the right mic. Here, I'll boost it up just in case. All right. Testing 1 2 1 2. I'm not gonna shut the mic any deeper towards my mouth. So it's across the room. Oh, that's really interesting. That's weird.
I have a theory. Let me do some magic. And we're going to be. Let me see. Okay, how about now?
Okay.
Did my mic get better? And TTao,
It
could you
did.
speak up and see if your mic got better?
It definitely sounds like your mic got a little better. How are you guys hearing me now? Testing 1 2 1 2. He's got way better.
Okay.
Yeah.
TTao
Cool.
is way better and beautiful.
Fantastic.
Everyone's in here. Now, what's
There
very
we
funny
go.
is I can no longer hear TTao. So I don't know how that worked out, but we're gonna figure it out. We're vibing.
We'll figure it
we're
out.
Vibing.
We'll figure it out.
TTao, while I do that, why don't you introduce our guest because they can
course.
hear you, and
Let's
you're
do
too
that.
loud. Okay, I'm gonna bring you back down. TTao, go for it, my
We're-
friend.
All right. So first off, I appreciate everybody staying with us. We're figuring all this out together. We're still getting all the back ends. We actually have someone else that's coming onto the team that's going to help us with some of the assets, so it looks better next week. I promise you, this will be a little less bootstrap next week. But for now, thank you guys for staying with us. Today we're going to be talking about defense. We have Alduine coming out with us, and I'm really excited to have Alduine here with us because I've seen him around in beer league and a bunch of different places. So it's so cool that we actually get a chance to see him, talk, and just sort of hang out today. In terms of chat, please send us all your questions. What we're going to do is we're going to collect like all the best questions in chat as we go, and then have sort of like more of a Q&A towards right before break and maybe towards the end. So we're not going to interrupt the flow of Alduine, but we're gonna collect all your questions and make sure to have those ready for him. Okay. In terms of next, I think the next best step is let's get our guests into the show. So
All
give
right.
Doc 1 second.
So here we go. Alduine, welcome, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Oh, wait a second. And now, they should be able to hear you now.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Definitely happy to come by.
This is so exciting to have you here. There's so many defense questions. As a person who played mid a lot and who flexes into goalie when I shouldn't, this is
Yeah.
that's a really good question for you. Like,
Yeah,
my goalie keeps getting angry at me.
We'll get into that. It is very easy to have too many people in goal. And our team experienced that a couple times, and we're figuring out how to work around it.
For sure. So we're excited to talk about that. Before we get into like any of the clips, any of that, I really just want to hear about your history and sort of your experience with Echo. Could you tell us a little more on how you got started?
So my history goes all the way back Christmas of 2019. My brother got a headset for his first time. He left for a week and I was like, "Hey, can I download some games on here?" I found Echo, went and got my own headset a couple months later, and quickly got into the comp scene. I started at the beginning of season 1. I got into higher rank privates before I even hit level 50. I think my first high level private was with like Palador, Strem, I think CJ Sin and Crucian were there, a bunch of those people when I was like level 35. And so from there, I proceeded to work my way through season 1 and up until season 2 was my first experience in Master, playing for Illuminati, Illumiduty now, or I guess ex-Illumiduty. And I've just been chilling out in the diamond range since then.
For sure. I do have a question about Illuminati. I remember there was like name changes every season, right? It was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, so their name for a while was Illuminati. They were that, I believe, for both preseason and season 1. And then going between season 1 and season 2, when they did the whole MMR reset, they teams got ordered alphabetically. So Illuminati went in and changed their name to just ... because that put them at the very top of the list. So they were showing up in first place on the VRML website. And then not long after that, they changed their name to Illuminati. I never actually asked about where it came from, but that's kind of what I pieced together.
Okay, cool. This is like some of like the old, like, what was it, like AAA barber? Like to get your name on the top of the phone book. This is some like marketing energy right there. That's awesome. Okay, I did not know that. That's pretty funny. That's some insight, man. I wish I knew that earlier. That's always cool. Okay, so going from transitioning from Master Tier, and now you're playing on Team Triangle, correct?
I was on Triangle. As of yesterday, our team did just disband for various reasons. Mostly just team. We all left on good terms. I'd highly recommend any of the players on the team. We just had a few different play styles on it and a couple different directions people were wanting to go. So we split in half. I am still looking for a team with Shepard currently. I am not sure what Bucci and Griffin are doing at the moment.
Okay. So, can you talk us a bit more about like, progressing through the seasons, like season 1, season 2, and, you said you mentioned as you started in season 1, how has things changed over the years?
So
2019.
Yeah, I didn't really get into Echo too much until early 2020, right before COVID. And yeah, so it was weird times. I started out in bronze on an old team, Olympus, with Whoosh as the captain, and then Ice and Quotai were on the team with Lols as the sub. So that's some weird names and some weird positions. We see Lols is now up on a master team, and then the other members have their own reputations. And from there, we were bottom of bronze. We never won a single game.
From the bottom to the top.
You have to realize, bottom of bronze at the time, we were ranked like 30. And so what we found, I then proceeded on to another higher ranked bronze team. We were just on the cusp. I remember we were trying to pass Skull Crusaders at the time, who was carried by Oculusator in silver.
Very different times.
Yeah, and so you've seen a lot of these people come up and just start progressing quickly, and all of these players that were bronze at the time, immediately when Quest came out, were all of a sudden in the diamond range now, essentially. And you see a lot of these old players that were playing competitively, but were at the very bottom, are now up towards the top of the league. without necessarily changing too much. But then at the same time, we've just seen players. You look at Joker or Ignite now, from 2 years ago compared to now, they're a completely different team now. They've progressed so much, and you can say that about any of the teams out there. They're all progressing. The skill level of Echo, I feel, is progressing still at a very fast rate. And so you see people, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this player used to be really good. Why are they no longer so good? I don't think it's that they got worse. I think it's that they didn't get better.
So, on the topic of getting better, was there any specific moment or like a stretch of time where like your skills like vastly improved? Was it mainly like when you got started, or?
Yeah, when I got started, I went out, I looked for help everywhere. I was in the Discord asking questions, watching videos, all that sort of stuff for a week before I even got my headset. So I was out there doing research for the game, chatting with people, etc. before I got my headset. And then after that, just going around and talking to a ton of people. I played a ton back at the time. I was doing 40 to 60 hours a week in Echo, on top of my full-time job as well.
For sure.
Thanks, quarantine.
Yeah.
But I went around, and the biggest thing I did to improve, I just looked for opinions from everyone. I went to as many different people and asked for advice, because someone comes up and asks me for advice, like, hey, how can I do this better? I'll give them my advice. And that's what I see as, hey, I think this is what you can do better.
Sure.
With that said, that's my opinion, and I might have valid points, but someone else might say something completely contradictory that is also valid. And so the biggest thing I found is just going out and piecing all that information together from as many people as you can to find what works for you, because you might not have gotten the wrong answers, but you probably got a lot of different answers, and some of those answers may not work for your style. And so you have to go in and find your own style in the game and really develop how you play and what you're good at, and capitalize on that as much as you can.
So speaking of developing your own style, Alduine, one of the reasons why I think you were excited, or at least one of the things you said that brought you to wanting to be a guest, is you kind of are developing a new approach, or a little wrinkle, a bit of meta, so to speak. And we're going to be talking about that, but why don't you just kind of start with your thinking on where this idea emerged, like how it kind of started forming, and just kind of start at the beginning there.
Yeah, so this is going into Triangle's defense style. I can say we are planning on adapting this defense over to whatever my next team is as well. So it is something that I do think worked, and it wasn't related. The team disbanding wasn't a sign that it does not work. And so what that was is it's goalie rotation, essentially. It's something that I kind of thought about for a while, and no one really does. I'd asked around years ago, and it just kind of got shot down of, why would you do that? It doesn't really make sense. And then back when we were starting to form Triangle, I got in a couple-hour conversation with Buchibo after one of our tryout scrims testing out the roster, and somehow we got on the topic of rotational goalies, and he was like, I've been wanting that for forever. We should try and do that. And then that's when I reached out to Shepard as well. I had the idea to reach out to him, because we were a little like, who do we reach out to? We have 2 goalies and a backliner. We need a striker, and we didn't have many options. And then with this idea, it's like, wait, we can just grab another goalie. It doesn't matter who's on the team anymore. We can get them all to fit. And so the idea originated in Rocket League. I played Rocket League for a few years a while ago. Got okay at the game. I was up in Diamond, for anyone who knows the rankings. The big thing in that, though, is you don't have a dedicated goalie in the game. You have a rotational goalie. You go out, and then you come back to the goal, and the next person comes. You go out to interact with the ball, or disc in this case, and then someone else fills in for you. The big thing for this is capitalizing on loose disc. So particularly, there's a lot of scenarios I've seen where disc is up by like shoulder or something, and you want to, the goalie has a 50-50 that they can go dive it before the other team gets to it. But currently no team dives that because the goalie shouldn't be leaving the goal for the open goal on a 50-50. That would just, if you get it, you might cause a long-term turnover that could lead to a point. If you lose it, it's an open goal for the other team. It's not worth the risk. And so we went about it like, hey, how can we go in and mitigate that risk while still capitalizing on that potential 50-50? Because that's now a chance for a turnover. And so that's what this was developed on, capitalizing on those dives, and then going beyond that, what happens when the disc is farther out? And you can get a stack together for it, but usually the two closest people to stack is the goalie and someone near the goalie. They're usually the first two people that can get together. So now you need a third person who's able to jump into the goal while you're out and protect that from a half court. If you're if you're contesting a disc at like trap or something. And so we found in our scrims that we go out and we were getting turnovers left and right. We went against teams that were known to have really strong offenses, and we completely shut them down with our defense, which I haven't seen too much of, and it was just a very different style. It's very fast paced and a little hectic, especially when we were working on developing it, but we had some really good results with it.
For sure. I'm really excited for us to talk about some of the clips that you sent us so we can see it in action and sort of discuss what you're talking about. It's I already saw some of the clips, so it was really interesting to see. In terms of developing it, you mentioned it sort of like as you developed it. Is there any key points for sort of this like defense that sort of came up over time?
Communication. Communication is the biggest thing for it, period. If you have a single person on your team that is not very talkative with their call-outs or anything, it's just going to fall apart. You have to have a lot of trust in your teammates. You have to be calling out what's going on, because if you leave that goal and you're calling it's open, someone needs to listen to that and fill it in. If the call doesn't go out or no one listens to it and goes into the goal, you're setting yourself up poorly, and you're going to be in a worse situation than you would have been if you just started with one goalie and didn't have them jump out.
Sure.
And so getting that chemistry down was definitely the biggest part. It was a rough first couple of weeks when we were trying to put it together.
So I think is there something else you want to add? Otherwise, I think this could be a good segue into actually pulling up some of the clips.
Yeah, I think that's good. The only thing I wanted to add is Alduine, this really jives with some thoughts that I had about Echo Arena, because I follow sports. I follow a lot of different sports, and one of the biggest things in sports is about positions, player positions, and that has to do a lot with player size and player speed. Right, so you think about like basketball. You have like really tall players that kind of are closer to the basket. Shorter players are farther away from the basket, and generally like use speed to counteract that. Football, obviously, there are big linemen that kind of stand in the middle and they brawl it out, and then like faster, wings and backers that are on the sides and they're moving fast. In an Echo Arena, you don't have those limitations because everyone can move the same speed. Obviously, the height is an issue, but it's not as defining an issue as in many other sports. And the concept of strength also doesn't really exist because a punch is a punch, a block is a block. It doesn't matter how much force you have behind it. If you touch them, then you get that stun. And so Echo Arena allows us to be highly interchangeable in the sense that the same player can be the fastest and the quote strongest or quickest to strike. Like there's no reason why any player can't actually be maxed at basically all of the skills in the game. And that combined with the regrabbing meta of like obviously the power of that tool means that everyone needs to be able to move quickly, move to the point of action, and bring all of the tools to that activity, whatever it is, whether it's a fight, whether it's grabbing and shooting, whether it's making a save, whatever that action is, you got to bring the skills. So I really am excited about hearing your look at this from a defensive and goalie perspective, because I think there's a lot that can still go on in the meta in this direction. So
yeah, and
go ahead.
And so that is a good point. Anyone can play any position, and you talk to a lot of the high tier teams. You look up at like the master teams and stuff, and you talk to them about positions. Positions aren't very much of a thing up there. You have your QB usually, well, obviously, and then beyond that, you don't have too much of a position. The only thing teams do have really is a main goalie still, which my team was working on getting away with removing that as well. But so these teams up at high level are already well-rounded and can really fill anything. With that said, though, I will say I would not recommend this style to like a bronze team or maybe even a silver or gold team, just depending on specialties, because there is such a learning curve to the game that usually lower tier goalies are just focusing on goalie. That's how I started out. That's how a lot of goalies I see even up at like the plat diamond area are. They're great in goal, but you put them out of goal and they are lacking a little bit, and that's one of the biggest gaps for a goalie to get into high diamond and master. So with that said, for a lower tier team, it may be hard to get 4 well-rounded players who are competent everywhere. But as you get higher and higher, those lines start to go away.
Totally. All right. Well, let's kick it into the analysis section here. So I'm going to bring up my viewer, and luckily it is working. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Alduine and TTao, if you guys join that link that I sent you, you should be able to see my screen. I sent you a DM there. You should be able to see my screen in real time. TTao, are you in? You're seeing my screen?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in.
Alduine, you're joining.
I am working on it.
Yeah, it might ask you to like share a screen or a camera or something. You just click something and then just exit out afterwards.
Yeah, just share any screen. It won't matter. So okay, so this first clip is clip 3 in the sequence. Alduine gave us three clips here. So Alduine, can you just kind of bring us into your thinking on like first of all, what's happening in this clip, and yeah, what are we watching here?
Yeah, so I am having some issues with the link. I'm just going to go off the Twitch stream. It shouldn't have much of a delay, so I should be able to talk off of it there. I'm also pretty familiar with these files already, so you can go ahead and play it, and I can kind of give my feedback from there.
My controller is having a little bit of issues, so I can play it here, and oh man,
Use mouse and scroll wheel if needed, and just sort of get you
there
to
we
position.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me take this back. So all right, first we're gonna start with the classic Doc call off. So first of all, who are we playing here? This looks like
I believe, was this the game? Okay, no, this was our game. Who was this?
It looks like Gen Z almost.
Yes, I believe it was. We played them last week in one of our matches.
Okay, so we have Triangle in orange, we have Gen Z in blue, and here kicks off the clip. There's a bit of a scramble in the trap. Prometheus and Klex re-grabbing. Beautiful clear through. It gets caught in the popcorn, but then sent up. Alduine jumps out of goal, doesn't quite get it. Shepard now jumps out of goal. Platypus with a shot, no. Disc rebounded, and it's going to be in the hands of Buchibo, who clears it through, and the stacks are ablazing. And I think that's the action that we wanted to see. So, all right, Alduine, take us back to the beginning and walk us through kind of what you're seeing in this clip here. Obviously, I think you want us to see from the goalie diving action, right?
Yeah. So the focus here is on what the goalies are doing. And so if you come up here to when we're going back towards goal, you should see one of us jump into goal right off the bat.
And then coming back and goal.
Yep.
So right
That
here,
is
we've got
actually me.
Alduine and Shepard around the goal.
Yeah, and so I believe this is clip 3, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, I honestly whiffed this catch here, but you see, Shepard's holding goal. I'm able to come out and pressure the disc. I miss the disc, and Shepard has a good angle on it, so he attempts to go up for it and calls that the goal is empty here. And so I just switch with him again, and he goes for the pressure. And so now this is that 50-50 scenario where I don't think I could have gotten that disc. Shepard was able to jump for it. He didn't win it, but it shows kind of the concept of what we're going for. He's pressuring the 50-50 with Platypus there, just in hopes that he gets it. He gets sunned out and loses it, but you can kind of see the idea.
Totally.
And so that's just a single move. That's a really simple scenario and kind of the key highlight from this clip.
The main thing I'm seeing is, you're on rim, seeing the disc bounce, you dive for it, someone else fills for you.
Yep.
After the dive, now Shepard is going to dive next, and you're filling back into net, right?
Yep,
and
I fill back into net, and then you notice after the shot goes by, Shepard just comes down onto me. From there, I'm able to do something we call a bump, which is basically I can just jump out from one block to another. It gives him about a half second to throw off quickly in pressure. Or in this scenario, we end up getting the disc, and now we're already chained. We can go out and chase down the disc on the other side of the field.
Yeah. When you talk about the bump, I think I learned that as like slingshot or something, where like you have someone on the bump is someone's on the goalie on the cube, right? You pull towards a cube.
Yep.
They get a nice little
goalie pulls
boost
from one cube to another, and the person on the goalie's back throws off during that duration. We call it a bump to stick with one syllable.
Perfect.
So it's just a nice short call out. But yeah, that is the purpose of it. It's something that we're able to do out of the goal area really easily. And then if in this scenario we end up getting the disc, we are already sacked as well, so we can go pressure it. There isn't much of a loss there as long as we're not having to cover passes, which at this point we were not.
So
Question for you.
If you could, there are two moments in here. There are two switches, basically, or I don't know, switch in the first case. But obviously, you and Shepard are both in goal or very close to the goal originally, and Shepard ends up getting in goal first. Or actually, you are kind of in goal first, and you jump, and Shepard covers for you, and then and then you jump down as Shepard jumps back out. I guess
exactly.
Talk to me about all of this happens in the span of like 2.5 seconds, right? So there's multiple switches happening. How are you communicating? How are you making decisions about who's getting in goal at each of these points?
Constant talking. So I'm coming back. I called the goal. I get in the goal there, and then I see that I have a contestant on the disc here. I call out. And in that time, Shepard's able to go into the goal. He knows that the goal's empty and that he needs to get into that. I go up and I miss my grab, and so he subsequently goes in and calls that he's diving out, and so I'm able to jump back into the goal and kind of get my bearings while he's trying to grab the disc.
Wow. So the call, you call out, that's the call?
It depends on the scenario. In that case, I would have just called that that I have goal, and then immediately followed up with out. If I'm sitting in goal for a little while and then I jump out, I might call open goal or something along those lines, just to clarify what I'm meaning in that scenario.
Cool. Sure. And how did you make this call once you missed the disc? How did you communicate to Shepard? Did he say out, or how did you make that communication that you shouldn't go for the disc, you should rather go for the goal?
Exactly. I look down, and as you see, I turn my head around and I see Shepard getting ready to jump, and I kind of already know what he's going to do just due to the chemistry. And so we're able to work together like that, essentially. You can see he's staring straight at the disc. I'm watching him. I'm watching the disc. He thinks he has a good line on it, so he goes for it. I don't know if someone's right behind me necessarily, which in this case, Platypus was pretty close to me, etc.
That's so cool. So you guys are just in sync. You're kind of like, you pop off. You pop off, and the disc is kind of takes a funny bounce.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of not really like you're kind of floating. You're not really able to redirect to get to it. And meanwhile you see Shepard being active, and like what he's thinking, and so you're kind of just like already like right here. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get this disc.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. Shepard has a jump on it. I'll switch over. I'll take over the goal and get ready for whatever comes next.
That's cool.
It is very, very hectic. There's a lot going on in our bubble. Like I said, our first couple weeks of this was terrible. We'd play a game and we'd have like one play in it that it's like, that's it. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And then the rest of the game was just garbage on defense. And it was just getting that consistency that we were able to keep hitting that and doing what we're wanting to do.
Sweet.
Also, I want to mention that because Shepard pushed out and Alduine was still in goal, it looks like it forced Platypus to like take a quick shot. Didn't seem like he had a lot of time.
Exactly. We're able to keep that pressure up. We can keep sending people out to jump at a walk, etc. We have scenarios that someone's walking up from like bow to shield, and the goalie's able to just jump out on that. Depending on the scenario, they can jump them before they get into the bubble and call for the goalie rotation, and it allows us to get that pressure on sooner and create more turnover scenarios. And that's the goal. We want to find as many of these turnover scenarios as we can and just take all of those. We're not going to have many like 100% turnover rates, but we just go for these. We have a 25% here, we have a 50% here, and we keep taking those. And by increasing the quantity of the turnover scenarios, we're going to hit one eventually.
For sure. It sounds like you're just increasing your chances, right? As you mentioned, even during before, it was like, oh, it was a 50-50 that maybe you could get it, but if you don't dive, it's a 0, right?
Exactly. So Shepard jumped up. He could have just sat in the goal, and I could have gone and done who knows what, reset some other position, look for another person coming in. He goes up, and he lost the disc, but he had a chance to get that too. If he came in and read Platypus and blocked instead, it would have been our disc right then.
For sure. It does seem like there is a demand for a high-level mechanical skill on the defender, though. It does look like it's forcing you to fight those.
Yeah, it is not easy to do, which is why I'd only really recommend it to more experienced players, because there is a ton of stuff going on. But it's something that I've never really seen a team do much, and I don't know why no one's really tried it. Our experience shows that it worked really well. So yeah.
Sure. And it sounds like if everybody's competent, able to just fill in goal, even if they're not, the ideal, the best goalie on the team, you're still increasing those turnover rates.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. I think this is, if there's anything else you want to add on to this play, otherwise I think we could be good to take a look at maybe clip 2, because that one has another really good example of this defense.
Yeah, just wanted to shout out, I just dropped the link in the chat. If you don't know this tool that we're working on, this is the Echo Replay Viewer. It's a community-built tool. Sneaky Evil, NTS Franz, Zenith, I Blow It Sports, a few other developers have helped out with it. It's super awesome, and as you can see, it's like really powerful. All you need to do is download Spark and have it record the Echo Replay file. And if you want your clip analyzed on Playmakers, then here's a form for you. Just as we say, record those replay files and then submit via that link. And if you have any trouble, just DM us. We'll help you out.
Sure.
But yeah, would love to get more community submissions, and and get those going. So okay, now I'm gonna load up clip number 1. I think here we're gonna do clip 2 at
Number
the
1.
end.
Oh, come to at the end.
So
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to clip 1 and then clip 2 then.
Yep.
Also, I dropped in the chat is discord.io/VR Playmakers is like a redirect link right to our Discord server. So again, come join us, talk. There's lots of conversation going on. We're also doing like little tournaments, little stuff like that. So feel free to come join and come hang out with us.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at clip number 1.
I think I have it queued up here. Let me just verify.
Okay. While we're transitioning, I actually had a question about the bump that you were talking about, Alduine.
Yeah, what's up?
So, like, how much speed is the person giving them a boost? Like, what
So
normally?
when you throw off a block, you're stuck to 4 meters a second. You're not really going to get a head boost during that period of time. So you can get someone up to 8 meters a second off of that. They're on your back. You throw from one block to another. That's 4. They throw off of your back. That's another 4. So you have 8 meters a second.
Okay, shooting them off at 8. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Is there specific blocks that you think works the best for bump, or is it just any?
Any really. The easiest ones to do, you're going to be bumping usually from that middle block to any of the blocks directly around you. The easiest ones to get to is the one out towards the right a little bit and out towards the left a little bit.
Mhm.
And that can get them off to the left or right side of the field. You can also go up or down to get them up or down. If you're at a weird angle, they kind of have to make do with what they have, usually using a head boost to redirect their momentum slightly. But yeah, one of those 4 directions would usually be what you're hitting.
Sure.
And this is something you can really do from anywhere in the field. There are scenarios where I'm on bow tie for a back chain, and we want to send one person to pressure from the back chain and the other person go back. You can bump up from the back side to the front side of bow tie. That allows them to get that momentum going out still without pulling both people forward.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, the call-outs bump, and you can. It sounds like the person, whoever's anchored, right, gets a 4 meter per second pull. Second person behind gets that extra 4 meters. They go out at 8.
Yep,
Even
exactly.
if the person in front isn't getting like a perfect shot towards the target, the person in back can always redirect using the way they pull and their head boosters because they'll have more time as they're flying through, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah. Thanks for that. I think we've got this queued up here. This is clip 1. So I'm gonna give it again the classic Doc call off, and we'll probably be a little bit shorter on this clip because we got about 15 minutes to break, and I think the next clip is definitely shows a lot of good stuff as well. So here we go again. This is Triangle against Gen Z. Gen Z with the disc. Chewy stack clears it through. Disc now deep in the bubble. Buchibo goes in, gets smacked out. Alduine gets it out, but it gets in the trap. Disc bouncing back, cleared back. Oh no, Prometheus off the boot, doing a bit of styling. Alduine, oh no, ding off the ring. Buchibo gets it though and clears it through. And I think that's the action we wanted to see, right, Alduine?
Yeah. So what we're going to be looking at here is we're going to be looking at the stacks at the beginning. So if you go back to kind of where we should see a stack form around shield, I believe. Yeah, right in here. So we come back, we set up one person goes to goal. I believe it's Buchibo here, and I stay on the shield. From there, we're able to split up. From there, one person goes to the disc, one person goes to goal. So I'm holding goal. Bucci grabs the disc and clears it, I believe. Okay. Yeah, so Bucci gets stunned. I go up. I'm able to grab the disc, clear it out, and Bucci rotates towards goal. Griffin's coming back into the goal. We now have 3 people in the bubble area. From there, we need to split the chain because we don't want to actually chain out with 3. So we see now Griffin will throw off the chain because he realized, hey, I'm leeching here. So even though me and Bucci were the first ones back, we're now the ones going forward. We got set up. Griffin hopped on for a moment and then was like, wait a minute, no. And you see that rotation. So all of a sudden we went from our two of our main goalies switching out for Griffin, as we're able to hold this stack and decide what we want to do from there. We're able to then continue that pressure and kind of go with the play from that. So that's a big thing in this play, just watching the chains and this decision making there. For most teams, your goalie wouldn't form that stack. Me or Bucci were the goalies there. We ended up being the 2 that went out, even though we were the ones holding goal. We called, hey, we're out of goal, someone needs to cover it. We're getting a stack. And so that's kind of where it came from. This wasn't too much. It was more just on the decision making of how we processed this. We're getting the first stack together that we can and trusting that our teammates are there to fill the holes that we left. So it's a lot of trust. It's a lot of communication and just knowing what we're going to be doing.
The biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is that since you and Buchibo are stacking, that's stacking a lot faster than if Buchibo had to go around and look for Griffin, who was coming on the way back.
Exactly. We knew where each other were. We're able to get that chain together and head out as soon as possible. Yes, Griffin wouldn't have been much slower in this specific scenario, but we had a good setup with each other, and there's no reason to pull that apart.
For sure. And it sounds like I've seen this in a lot of teams where, they have like predetermined stacks,
Mm-hmm.
and they would like go out of their way to stack with their regrab partner, right?
Yeah. A lot of teams do that. We definitely don't do that. We have the stacks at the start of our rollouts. On defense, we'll run a lot of double chains, etc. And so we have our stack partners there. So we do have a preference for stacking. But when it comes to defensive rotations like this, no, you go with who's there. There's no reason to spend the time to look for the right person. We can all perform what's needed. Why spend the time? Why waste that second going to look for the person you prefer when you have 2 competent people there?
Sure.
So
And
there are 2 decisions that stand out to me here. One, Alduine, is when you and Buchibo are on the shield, and Bucci goes for the disc, and you go for the goal. And then the other one is kind of immediately after that, when you and Buchibo and Griffin are all stacked up, and then Griffin pushes off and goes back to goal. Could you just talk about those 2 decisions and how you decided that you would go to goal in the first instance, and Bucci would break off, and in the second instance that Griffin would go to goal?
That's communications and chemistry. We kind of knew that order of priority of who jumps into the goal, and this is just something that we came up with and just how people liked it. Shepard was usually the first one in goal. If anyone was going back with Shepard and the goal was left open, he was usually jumping in. Past that, though, if it was between me, Bucci, or Griffin, it was usually me, and then Griffin would usually be the third one to jump in, and Bucci rarely jumped into goal. That was just something that we kind of did without thinking about it, and just kind of all knew, even though it was never formally discussed. Beyond that, though, it's just comms. Either I called I got goal here, or Bucci called he has disc, and that's how we split. So communication and chemistry is really what it came down to for that first one. For the second one, I have a good chance to get that disc. I pressure it, and I do get a slap out to midfield successfully here. Bucci does come over to me. We have 2 options. He could have either gone back to goal or gone to me. He chose to go to me in this scenario. But we decided it was best not to keep stacking out, even though we started to. Griffin was the third one there. He goes and takes over goal while we rotate out. A lot of times, the person taking goal is the last one there in a scenario like this, where the disc is out of the way, because we're getting people who can pressure while we have time. So when Griffin has a few seconds to get to the goal, he doesn't need to be there right that second, so we can take the person most out of position to go play goal in that scenario.
Sick. That's so dope. In real time. I mean, that you say it like it's so easy right now, but I mean, this is literally happening, and I'll play this in full speed, you guys, and you know, this is how fast all of those decisions are happening. I mean, it's that those 3 decisions happened in the space of about 5 seconds. So yeah, that's pretty killer. Anything, TTao, you wanna scoop up before we head to the other clip?
No, I think just based on how much time before the break, I think it would be good to talk about clip number 2.
Sweet.
Yeah, we just go right into it.
All right.
Yeah. Clip 2 is where we put most of it together here, and
Sure.
it performs really well.
Sure. Do you have any tips actually for teams that are trying to implement this? Because you said there was like an adjustment period, right? You mentioned, comms being really important.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for teams that want to start implementing like a rotating defense?
Advice for teams to start rotating.
Yeah.
It's not something I've really done, so my idea could be completely wrong here. My thought on it, though, is have everyone play main goalie. Run scrims, run pubs, run whatever, where someone's playing main goalie. And like I said, comms are the most important thing. And for any goalies out there, you're in the goal, you're sitting there, you're calling out where everyone is. You're your entire team's eyes. So anyone playing goalie needs to be able to do that. So go into a pub or something and try running a practice where you have a set goalie for that, and they're the only one that's allowed to talk. No one else talks. They have to do all the call outs for that. Get everyone comfortable with constantly talking and giving those call outs, because that's the biggest thing that's going to help develop this. And as you get comfortable giving those call outs, then you can try going in and switching up who's playing in goal mid-round. It could start simple. You could just do first one to goal plays goalie, and then you start finding scenarios that's like, okay, I can jump this, and you find an easy jump that you can jump out, and then you get to more and more of those scenarios where it's getting riskier and riskier, and you find your limits of what you can and can't do with it. Find what works for your team, and what worked for our team might be different for other teams. So find what works for each team individually, because it might not be exactly how we do it, even though it's a similar idea. And then just get ready, be prepared for it to just suck right off the bat. What happened when we were first doing it, like I said, it did not work at all right at the beginning. We went in and we'd play 6 rounds for a private, and we'd have 1 or 2 couple seconds scenarios like that one where it's like, okay, this actually worked how we wanted it to work. And so we didn't look at the 99 times it didn't work. We looked at the one time it did work, and it's like, okay, why did this work here? Let's try to recreate that, and taking that one time, turning it into 2, turning it into 3, turning it into 10, 50, and getting to the point that it's just second nature and it just works.
So I'm hearing to improve that calm, running maybe a pub, maybe running a scrim, having one person talk. And again, you can change, but just have one person be the main communicator.
And so that's just an idea that I've had floating around in my head. I don't know if that's going to actually work. But yeah, if you have any teammates struggling with giving enough communication and everything, try running that as a practice. Scrims, you don't need to play a scrim to win. You don't need the pub to win. You can play it to practice. I've done this all the time on various teams. We'll we'll play, and it's like, we don't care if we win or lose here. We're working on this specific thing. We'll run the same QB joust over and over and over, even though the team we're playing against is reading it every single time, because we're trying to figure out how to deal with the team reading our play and adapt to that. And so don't get hung up on practicing something in a scrim and it not working. It's a learning experience. You're there to practice. Your games is where you go all out, but a scrim, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. You're just trying to get better. And if you're playing worse so that you can play better in the future, that's still a win in my book.
I love that. Yeah, I've often said you have to get worse to get better. You kind of reach like a local maximum of skill of whatever you're doing. You reach a peak, but then to get to a higher peak, you gotta kind of go down that peak and go hike up another mountains. That's a little higher, and that journey can feel daunting. It can feel rough, but like you say, I mean that's what we're here for. So cool. Okay, well let's kick off this replay here. I'll give it the call out, and then we'll rewind it, and we'll talk us through it. So here we go. Disc is in the trap. Shepard in the area. Oh no, Chewy Stack comes through, clears it through. Disc deep in the bubble. It's going to take several bounces off. What a read. Shot. Oh, just a little bit wide. High. Klex in the area. Shepard in the area. Alduine there. Tries to clear. Clear is not quite good enough. It's going to be picked up, but stunned out immediately. Disc is floating free. It looks like it's going to be picked up. Yes, Klex moving over. Klex going to deliver it over to the left side. It's going to be Platypus delivering it to Chewy on the top. Oh, no. Middle pocket. Big time score from Gen Z. So, all right, let's rewind that. And walk us through.
Yeah.
Obviously, they scored on this, but
yeah. So they did score on this eventually, and that's not really the point of this play. We're looking more at what happens before that and how we're able to kind of control the defense ahead of that. Yes, they did eventually score in a essentially 1v1, but I'm wanting to focus more on what's going on. So the first thing you see is we're coming back. Griffin and myself are chained. I get in bubble. He's sitting on backboard, kind of seeing what's going on. From there, I get a read. I jump. I call that I'm going out for it, and Griffin immediately switches into goal. So we had next to 0 downtime in the goal there. From there, you see Buchibo's actually coming back to Griffin to form a stack while we're out contesting this disc. They're getting that stack together, and as soon as this contention happens, Shepard's able to slap it out. It doesn't get cleared, but the stack's already out, pressuring that and trying to create again that 50-50 scenario. And this is the goalies pushing out as a stack on this. I'm kind of honestly a little bit out of position going forward. I was hoping it would be farther out. But Shepard sees what's going on, and he immediately starts rotating back to the goal. That's now our third goalie of these 5 seconds. He holds on Nugget and eventually rotates his way back into goal, watching those lanes. And from there, the disc gets scored. But so you see how we're able to go from I'm in goal to Griffin's in goal to Griffin and Bucci are stacked and Shep's in goal is kind of the whole rotation we saw there, and how we're able to just keep up that pressure from defense on the play.
Absolutely.
What I'm also seeing is the defensive back stack, right? Like the goalie and the back stack is sort of fulfilling the role of the front stack to chase that disc, right?
Yep.
It's not.
Yep. The back stack there rotates up to the front stack, essentially. We don't have a distinctive front and back stack in this scenario. It's just they're the stack that's together. Me and Shep were out contesting and at slightly different locations. Griffin and Bucci, Griffin was just holding the goal. Bucci was just, he was out of the play. Disc was over on the other side. He didn't have to do anything. So he just went over to Griffin and just formed the stack waiting. From there, he can get that bump out like we did in that previous clip, or in this scenario, we can do the stack out to pressure the disc.
In terms of having this, having these switches, right? Again, you talked about comms. Can you just give us an example of sort of what the comms were like in that situation?
Yeah, so I would have called that. So when we're coming back at the very beginning, I would have been calling that I've got goal. I'm taking goal. Griffin comes through, and at the time he goes off to the backboard. I see a dive attempt. I call that I'm diving. It's in front of me, and now I move forward at the same time that Griffin moves forward, and we just kind of form this line. If Griffin went for that, he would have been a split second slower than if I went for it. And so now we're able to keep that uptime in the goal and put that pressure on the disc just a fraction of a second sooner.
And as,
And
as
then from beyond that, now they form the stack. They pressure Shepard's clear here and would have called that the goal is open. Shepard hears that and immediately starts heading back to the goal. Because this is a 50-50 scenario. There's a bunch of people up in that area. No one knows who that disc is going to go to. We could have gotten it. They could have gotten it. Who knows? And so we're just trying to keep that pressure up, give us that chance to get it, but be ready in case we don't get it.
For sure. Yeah, the biggest, my takeaway in terms of we're watching this clips and as you're talking about it is for the goalie to be more active during some of these plays and not just like.
Exactly. Exactly. It's something we talked about that you see the first part where I jumped out to chase the disc and Griffin filled in for me. That's just a net positive. There was no downside to doing that other than switching the goalies. Griffin could have pressured that just fine. He can also jump into goal just fine, and I'm able to get out there just a little bit faster. And it's just capitalizing on those small numbers. Give us those marginal increases because every increase is a positive.
Sure. Yeah. This is really in contrast with someone like the lower tier where someone runs like a perma goalie where the person's in gold all the time. Doesn't matter if the disc is on their like the enemy half of the field, they're sitting in the net the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And it just seems like you're getting that incremental speed faster, but also you're having those number advantages in some of these situations where, like it's not just a 1v1, it's a 2v1 sometimes. It's like you have that advantage on a disc holder.
Yep, exactly. We're able to keep that pressure up on defense, and so we had a very aggressive defense because of that.
Sure.
And that's something that not many people see, and I think it worked really well for us.
Sure. And especially as you're mentioning with goalies and just people who are comfortable filling in net, there's really very little loss, right? Unless you have one goalie that vastly outperforms all three other players, right?
Exactly.
Like, if the save rates somewhat comparable, then anybody can fill in. Yeah, you might they might not save as much, but you got an extra second here or there where that you got one or more turnover rather than one or more saves.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of teams that we're seeing teams form with 4 strikers because they just have such a good offense, and then they're just taking the best goalie to play goal. They can adapt this into a team like that, and now none of them are amazing goalies per se, but now their defense goes way up without having to rely on those goalie skills. And at the same time, we're seeing a goalie surplus in the diamond range where we're seeing a lot of goalies and not as many heavy strikers necessarily. And so it can also give more options for them where it's like, okay, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have 2, 3, even 4 goalies on a team now.
So sort of the way you said that's funny to me. It's like you can have like multiple really good goalies or multiple really bad goalies. This works out.
Exactly. It's allowing for deviations from the classic 1 goalie, 1 midfielder, and 2 strikers. We've seen in the past year or so, teams have deviated from this, and I think that this is something that can help really fill in those gaps for those teams, where those teams are sometimes incredibly strong teams. And this can help increase a team in that scenario even more. Again, you get a team that has just 1 incredibly strong goalie, and this might not be the best strategy for them. I'm not saying that this is the only strategy, but we've seen there's a lot of different styles to the way teams play. You have the whole fast-paced style that Anomaly really capitalized, where they're incredibly fast, and that's what they're good at. We see Tensor doing that really well now. You had other teams like Spaghetti when they were around, where they were very movement-oriented, and they were able to really capitalize on those jukes and everything. And then you had the classic Kang Sao, just really slow-paced passing. And you look at teams, most teams fall into one of these categories or some sort of hybridization of several of them. And this is a category that I feel has been completely unexplored before now.
Amazing. Okay. I mean, it's also just worth noting on this play, this is some really highly skilled play by Gen Z. I mean, Chewy Stack gets this disc and is under so much pressure. Somehow gets the disc off. I don't even know. I've been rewinding it and watching it 25 times. I don't even know how they got that throw off. And then the throw goes absolutely, it's a perfect bean seed over to Klex, who then immediately pops off the trap and finds a player open. I think it's Platypus. Platypus then makes a beautiful little sideways move here. Doesn't dive in the bubble, but instead is looking for all the teammates, and Chewy Stack coming back, going off the nest and delivering. I mean, that's some skill. Like, no shade on you guys for not stopping him on this play, because I mean, they did great. And obviously if this clear from Shepard had been good, your stacks were right there ready.
Yeah, exactly. We had that. We had the first stack out. We had good rotations, and we did miss that clear. I'm not saying we're perfect, and Gen Z is a great team, and they did really good in here. It was a fun game. I think we all enjoyed that game a lot. But yeah.
The biggest thing I think what I'm getting is with some of this rotating defense is that, Shepard touching that disc might not have happened if he was just staying on defense and, someone wasn't going for it. And Griffin is so close to disc, right? That was a scramble. It was, 50-50 that he could have got it. And those opportunities wouldn't have happened if the defense was just staying around bubble and not contesting those those opportunities.
That was the big thing when we were working on this. There are kind of two steps that we were working on. The first was getting that rotation of you have just the goalie jumping out by themselves to go pressure something around the bubble somewhere that they have a chance at getting. And then we had this one, which is we have a chance of getting it with a chain. A single person's never going to make it. And so that goalie is able to pick up that chain quickly and go out and do that, while leaving someone else to defend. Because the goalie is the one watching everyone. They see where the disc is going. They see where teammates are, where opponents are, and they can make that call of, hey, let's go.
What I'm also seeing is it looks like even before the play, so right around when Shepard was about to clear, it looks like a bump was ready to be formed in net, right? And exactly. And it looked like that became the chain, but it could have been a bump if it was still loose in your side, right?
Exactly. So both me and Shepard were pressuring the disc down low on the left there, and Griffin was holding goal. Bushibo was over on the right side of the field. There's nothing going on the right side of the field. We're in a 50-50 scenario. We don't know what's going to happen, and so in that time, they go and get that disc. If it was passed over to the right chain, if it was won and passed over to post, Griffin could have bumped Buchibo out to contest it wherever it was, or in this scenario, it was cleared out, they have the chain, and they're ready to go and chase that. It's adaptable.
Sure. Yeah, I think as you're talking about the rotating goalie and having somebody dive out, what I'm seeing with some of this play is that bump forming. It's such a low risk play. Worst case scenario, the person that's defender that's on goalie can just break off and go back to defending. But you have this stack, you have this bump ready, and it's just I just see it as a net positive with very little loss.
Yeah, and I won't say it's something that's perfect in every scenario either. There are times that it's better to cover that pass option. But this was a good scenario where it did look like we were going to get it, and we did. So they were able to get that sack together, get oriented, and keep the play going forward.
Sure.
Well, speaking of moving forward, we're a little past our normal break time, so we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to be right back. And, of course, when we come back, we're going to have community replay files and the Stees of the Week. So we're gonna take a little 2-minute, 3-minute break. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, well, get some popcorn, get a little, get some snacks. Whatever you need to do. Take a little break. Get up, walk around. It's good for you. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. are back. Hey, Playmakers fans, if you haven't already heard, we're using the Echo Replay Viewer as a community-built project. I'm going to send out a link here if you want to download it and get to do some of this fun analysis we're doing. That's the spot for it. Second one is, once you get doing that, you need to be sending us your files because we want to analyze your plays with folks like Alduine and, of course, Doc and TTao. So there is a form that we have to fill out where you can submit your files. Please clip them. You'll see at the top there's this beautiful little scissors icon. Once you click that, you get a nice little slider, and you can drag this to like, oh yeah, I only want to take, I only want to take this little section, and then you click save, and then that makes a nice little clip. Makes it a lot smaller than this file that I'm currently hosting, which is nearly a gigabyte. So if you all were to do that, it would definitely break our Google Bank, which is pretty insignificant at this point. Okay, TTao, welcome back. Bring us into this clip we're about to see. I think this is Rice Rice Baby. Am I right?
That's correct. This is Rice Rice Baby, submitted by Craven Cravens. So we're going to be taking a look on the topic of defense. Specifically, there's some questions about, defense getting a turnover, but then enemies able to sort of just slap it and they're able to score. But, there were just questions about bubble defense and maybe a topic of, could the goalie have dived or something. So we'll take a look at it together, and then I would love to hear Alduine's thoughts on the defensive and what they could have done a little better.
Okay. So I'll give it the Doc call. We're gonna go from about right here. So okay, here we go. Disc is loose, crispy chicken, floating in space, beautiful back pass. K-Ham now comes in quickly, not under pressure there, but delivers it right into the hands of SZA Bear, and the stacks are out. Flying back in. Is that what you wanted to see there, TTao?
Yeah, a little bit more after this. So a little bit more after this. So as you can see, the defense was able to get a pick and then get a clear, right? But then they, Orange team was able to slap it back, and then you'll see it in just a moment.
This now delivered to the nest. Off the nest. Oh!
And then they scored.
Hameka Schlema.
Yeah.
Slema.
So
29 sends it in.
Yeah, submitted by the blue team, right? So the question was, they got that pick. They were able to throw it out, right? Enemy team was a little faster, sort of slapped it back onto their half, right? So if you can just see that where it starts bouncing, yeah, right around there is perfect. So, right, it's going to take some wild bounces, and defense was unable to read and recover, right? You see how they got back to net? And then, you have the two that's going to be pushing, right? So here's sort of the question: what could defense have done? Right? They were able to recover this. They slapped. I believe they do a nice pass over to the person on nest. There was in fact 2 enemy players on nest, right? And they were able to walk it in. So that's sort of the question, right? So if you go back just like a few seconds, right here where they have 3 in bubble, how could they have done this better? Essentially, maybe they could have bumped. I'm not even sure.
So they get a good jump on it. SZA and Willow are re-grabbing for the disc. They just barely miss Crispy Chicken. So they do put some good pressure on. But yeah, they left the bubble completely open. And obviously there was some good communication, good call out, because the disc was delivered directly to the player and ultimately was a pretty good score there. Alduine, do you see anything here that piques your interest?
So my thoughts here, blue team ran a stack out there to pressure the disc initially. That's valid, but it's a big gamble as well. That person was on nest already. They could have been unaware of that from their angle. It doesn't necessarily look like they looked over at him. If they are aware of that, I think it was pretty hard gamble pressuring with 2 people. I think they should have done a bump or just had even just one person fly forward and cover that, because they pressure him fast and you can catch someone off guard. And if you do, you're able to get the turnover. But if anything goes wrong there and you don't get that turnover, it now leads to an easy pass for a 1v1, which is going to be rough for any goalie out there. Um, so I think that's the first mistake there, and I think they should have been a little bit more aware of that orange player coming in. It looked like Hollow was initially in the goal there. Um, and so watching for those players and for where they are is huge. Watching that situational awareness, and so again, I don't know it's necessarily a bad thing to pressure there. It's just a gamble. That gamble in this scenario lost. They then do get this pass out. In this case, as the goalie, I'd be looking at this, and you're really only watching two people here. You're watching the person with the disc and the one person on nest. Farquid got up to nest very late in this scenario after the disc was already thrown. For the most part, he's not really in this play. So as the goalie, what the goalie could actually do here is, instead of sitting on that block there, they can jump out to the next goalie block that you see hovering over the corner of Ghost from this angle, essentially. Up higher. Not that block there. Yep, that's the one that's going to be straight out and above them. So if they go there, they're able to still block the shot easily. And even if they have no intention of jumping the person on nest, they're a lot closer to them, and it can cause the orange player there to hesitate and give your team more time to come back and back you up. In addition, if they tried to cut it in, now you actually are in a situation that you can jump that and go for an intercept on the pass. It's on the pass over to Slen. And so I would have definitely jumped up to there. When that pass goes off, it depends on goalie style. My preference for goalie style is I jump a lot of people in a 1v1 scenario. Dunks are nearly impossible to stop without a stun. And so everyone's goalie style changes. But in this scenario, I personally would have jumped at this point as well. As soon as they got that disc and started moving, I would have tried to see their trajectory and jump out and intercept that, going for both the stun and the grab, hoping I get one or both of them. That's kind of my thoughts on the play.
Great. So first case is Willow and SZA could have done a bump. Maybe send SZA and Willow goes for the defender there, or the attacking player Slenma. If they didn't see that, then the second opportunity was, as you mentioned, Craven's going toward this other block and then jumping this pass, because as you say, once that player has this disc and is going one-on-one, this is a very low percentage chance. So even if you miss the jump out or the stun out on the nest, you probably have a better chance at either one of those than once that player is diving one-on-one.
A lot of goalies think they have to stay right in the goal when they're playing goal, and that's not always the case. So yes, you have to be there, especially as more and more players get into the bubble, because you have to watch out for those passes around you. You can't be all the way off to one side and it goes through to the other, etc. There's actually even a third option here where Craven could have gone up to Ghost instead. Farquid kind of throws this off because he could have, if he chose to go through, it might be a bit of a bigger risk. But if he went up to that far shoulder instead, now he's in a perfect position to stop the shot and stop the pass over, or intercept the pass over to Slen. And if Farquid went straight through onto backboard, he's also blocking that angle. That's now 3 angles that you're blocking from a single position. It's risky, it's hard to do, but it is an option that you have on the table as well. And so I think the biggest thing is, don't lock a goalie down to sitting right in the goal. They can really move around a lot more and cover those lanes. You don't need to cover the goal. If you cover the lane to the goal, you're all good. And your goal in any position is cover as many lanes as you can. If you can cover more than one lane, do it.
Nice. This is so much fun. Alduine, you're killing it. I hope everybody in chat is digging this. Farsight in the chat. Yeah, buddy.
There, So what I'm also hearing is that if you position on that goalie block, a little higher, it would still be able to block a 3. So it's not like you're risking that open 3 opportunity, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You're still playing goal. You're blocking the lane. The biggest risk there would be if Slem gets the disc and immediately goes down and jumps along the shield trying to cut down low, because now Craving is going to want to throw back to that main goalie block, and if they miss that throw, they're in a bad situation. So again, that's both people doing a specific scenario, but from that goalie block, you're still able to cover the person coming in, as well as putting pressure on that first pass. You're forcing it not to be a cut pass into the bubble. In this scenario, it wasn't a cut pass into the bubble, but you don't know that before. It was straight to nest, so you wouldn't really want to do anything on that pass in this scenario, but it's a good setup in general when you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I definitely, there are times I'll jump around, I'll sit on that top or bottom goalie block above the goal frame to cover those backboard passes while also watching the goal. If someone's at 12 meters or something, yeah, they can't throw it straight into the, they could throw it straight into the goal, but I'm still close enough that I can dive down and grab that if I'm coordinated enough. And now I'm also covering that backboard pass. So as a goalie, you can really cover that backboard up until the point that they start pushing up to the bubble with the disc.
One thing I'm noticing too, if you watch Slen get off the nest, they kind of take an angle, and like where I put this X is really where they actually start like focusing on the goal and being able to actually score. And so Cravens is still pretty far away from that, being on that normal middle block. But if they were on this high block, as you mentioned, they're a lot closer. And and even if they miss the steal, even if they miss the player coming off the nest like immediately, just being in that area and being like right at this X point where they really start attacking, they could have gotten maybe the stun out and the steal right there.
Yeah, and that is definitely something to watch for. That I take advantage all the time. Someone's at like edge of bubble, and usually that's completely not jumpable. But if they turn around, they're not watching or something, it's a great time to try and go for the surprise and jump out and try to steal and stun while they're farther away. Again, it's a risk, as everything is in goal. If anyone has had 100% save rate, they'd be on Joker or Ignite.
Yeah, I think that's the key for me.
So
it's
trying to find the highest percentage. You're looking for what your best chance here is here. You're never, as a goalie, it's never about that you can save everything. It's finding what gives you the best chance of causing a turnover, getting a save, whatever, and taking that one. It's not going to be 100%, but you might turn a 20% chance into a 25% chance. And now they score 4 times in the game, you got 1 more save.
Yeah, I think the positioning, as you talk about with the goalie, is a little different, because I remember some people even teaching when I was just starting out, teaching me like, oh, put the block in the center of your chest and then just stand right here. And it's like, okay, that's...
And so when you're in goal to save a shot, I 100% agree. That's about where you want to be, at least for two-hand goalie style. There's a one-hand goalie style as well. I'm not going to go into that right now. But yeah, that is where you want to be when you're in goal. But you don't necessarily have to be in goal all the time. If there's a scenario that you're in a better position by actually not being in the goal, why not be there? Why not play goalie elsewhere in the bubble if you can be a better goalie at that location?
For sure. As you mentioned, we're not going to talk too much. Maybe if we have some extra time, I would love to pick your brain on like the different styles of goalies. But let's take a look at 2 other plays real fast. So same team, we have one more play that we want to discuss, which is it's round 3, 6 minutes and 50 seconds left. The issue, again, we're taking a look at Cravens again, taking a look at blue team. And blue team is having a hard time getting possession on defense, even though there was a few missed discs. So, the question is, how could they have position, or how could they have done something different so that they could get that turnover? And as you were talking about increasing that turnover percentage, is there anything you see that can improve defense getting the disc.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll watch in just a second. Round 3, 6 minutes and 50 seconds. I believe the frame number is like 52,000, give or take.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left in the show. So if we want to get to the next one, we'll spend about 5 minutes here. So I'll give it the call out, and then we'll roll. So KHAM with the disc going off the boot. Oh, what a save by SZA. Clear, not quite good though. It's in the popcorn. Immediately recovered. Crispy chicken in the area. Moving up. Spacing looking pretty good. Delivers it to the right side. It looks like Farquid on the shield, but gets stunned out by the defenders. Disc now in the wedge area. KHAM dipping, diving. Wow, what a move. Now on the Pac-Man. What a pass to Crispy chicken on the backside. Slen can't pick it up. It's going to be KHAM delivering it in. Oh, no. Cravens not able to get the stop, but very nice work. Beautiful passing. Okay, let's rewatch this here. Kind of a longer clip. So, yeah, where do you want to start, TTao?
Sure, we could just start at any time during that sequence. As you can see, there was a few missed passes, right? There were opportunities for defense to pick it up, but defense had a hard time doing that. They only touched the disc that one time right there, and it was like a bit of a slap. And it's all right even if we don't go into the third segment, the third like play that we have. I'm fine just for us to focus on the defensive play for this show, so that's perfect. So as you can see, Alduine, like they're having a hard time touching the disc, even though there was a few missed passes. So you can take a look.
Yeah.
We'll go.
So what I just saw right there, the pass went over from, I believe that was cluster, over to the cross shoulder. Is the first big thing I'm noticing. The pass goes across, and it looks like the defender almost didn't realize that the defender on Nest almost didn't realize that there was someone there. So this would have been back before where you are right now, Doc. When the disc gets passed over there, you have the defender there, and he almost looks a little surprised as it comes through, going over there. You see that hesitation. He grabbed the block and watches it for a second here, and then dives out. I think that's a big thing, speeding up that reaction time, and a lot of that's going to come down to comms, calling out what's going on, calling out pass shoulder or whatever from the goalie is something that can help a lot there, and just situational awareness, etc. So I think this one here is just reaction timing, doing whatever you can to increase that reaction, decrease your downtime, essentially, and be able to pressure it sooner would help a lot.
So that sort of stoppage on Nest is what sort of cost him that extra little bit of time, right?
Exactly. He could have gotten out sooner, and the orange player was grabbing onto the wall. You see, he didn't actually turn over to Nest or to shoulder until he was jumping off the shoulder. If he was there a second earlier, he might not have been noticed and could have gotten the stun off.
Yeah. And in this sequence, you can see that the defender is able to stun out the enemy, right? But it seems like they weren't able to pick that cross cut that happened.
Yeah. And so I would say that's a win there. You're yes, you don't get the turnover, but you're causing a loose disc, in which case it's anyone's game for who gets it. You prevent them from getting the disc there, which if they had no pressure on them, they would have had it. I think you see another mistake here too as well. We have two people pressuring out. And so that's something, if you only sent one person forward, the other person could have been back covering one of these passes. Two people walked out at about the same position. They weren't in a position to get stacked with each other. One person's kind of dead in the water in that scenario.
What I'm hearing, because you talked about this in the first community segment we were watching as well, is like if you commit two people to chasing a loose disc, like if you're like that's high risk. Maybe you could get it, but it sounds like you're increasing amount of risk.
And in this scenario as well, they didn't go out stacked. One flew out from post, and the other was, I believe, from shield. And so they're not stacked. There's no advantage really to pushing two forward there. In the previous scenario, they sent a stack out, which, yes, there is a chance that they can turn it over. In this scenario, you just sent out 2 individuals, which isn't going to have much better chance than just a single individual, because odds are they're going to go for a pass, not the juke. If it's someone who's juking, yes, sending multiple people at him as individuals might be the better option. But in this scenario, Orange Team seems to be passing a lot. Sending 2 people out by themselves to pressure it isn't going to do too much there, I don't think.
And it seems like that's a comm issue, right? It's like they both pushed
Yeah.
at roughly the same time.
Yeah, it's a comm and a chemistry issue, and that's something that you see it all the time in all levels of play. It's really easy to do. You're in the rush of the moment. You see the disc go by, and you jump out at it. And so yes, he did get stunned out here at Ghost, but if he just stayed back and covered whoever he thought was the best man there, that might be a better option instead of jumping off of Ghost, or instead of jumping off of the post here.
Yeah. And it's like he even stopped at Ghost because he was stunned out. He would have pushed even more.
Yeah.
Would have been even more out of position if he wasn't stunned, it sounded like.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a heat of the moment thing. It's incredibly easy to do, and whatever you can do to help communicate who's pressuring in these scenarios, the better.
Do you have a specific call out for when one person's pressuring?
Closest thing would just be I got it, or I'm pushing, something like that. In these scenarios, it's hard to do, and this is another thing. The goalie probably didn't have time here, but when I'm in goal and I see this, I'll call out like, "Hey, you guys are double pressuring. Come back." And so it's a good thing that the goalie can watch for. If you're overcommitting to the disc, the goalie's sitting there watching the play. They're the one that should be, or they're the one that can notice that and can call it out. And so communicating even that information can be really helpful to a team.
Again, goalie, it's sort of the goalie as the playmaker right now because they had the best view of the field.
The goalie's going to be sitting in bubble. They're watching everything. Their job is to watch all 7 people on the field and communicate what needs to be communicated to their teammates. Whether that's asking someone to cover an area, whether it's calling someone back, forming up stacks, whatever. The goalie's the one that can watch all of this. They can be tracking where someone's hiding for clears. They can be doing all sorts of stuff. And it's not easy to do, to track it all, but the more practice you get with it and the better you get at it, the more effective your team can be. And so, yeah, it comes down to communication, to trust in that. I always tell my teams, hey, if you're going out on something, if you get a call and follow that comm and something goes wrong, that's not on you. That's on the person giving the comm. What we don't want is for a comm to come through and people just ignore it. So I'd rather be in a situation where you follow a bad comm than you don't follow a good comm.
So what I'm hearing in terms of this sequence of defensive, like where they have like lots of passing around their half the field, what could have been done better is the goalie communicating and directing the team more. Is that correct?
Yeah. The goalie communicating and directing. Also, just the awareness of the people if they didn't jump out, and just keeping track of where everything is going on. There wasn't anything really egregious in here that it's like, oh wow, yeah, this was a bad thing here. Orange played this part really well, and so it's just small things that can be done to improve it.
Yeah. Okay. This is great. In terms of anything else you want to add in on this one, Doc?
No, yeah, really enjoying the analysis here.
So it sort of, I think we're about to wrap up soon because we're getting out of time as well. But overall, what I'm really hearing from today, looking at the community segment and looking at some of the plays that you sent to us and some of the clips of this rotating defense, I'm hearing a real big focus on communication and knowing who's going to go for the disc, who's going to fill. Like there's that communication that needs to happen. One way to improve that is to try a drill where you have one person communicating for the whole team for a segment of time in the scrim or in a pub where you have one person talking, just trying to really improve that communication skill. I'm also hearing that as you have those positions, you can do a bump where you have someone being on the goalie and they can sort of boost off to the goalie cubes so that now you have an opportunity to send someone out at 8 meters per second instead of them floating by themselves at 4 or 5, right? And that bump, it actually transitions right into a stack if there's a good clear. And we saw that in some of the clips where, now you have the goalie and the defender are able to push that much faster than if one of the defenders were to look for another defender across the field, right? So
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of positive, and I'm hearing that a lot of this focus is on increasing your percentage so that you get more turnovers and really making sure that you're capitalizing on all these opportunities while minimizing your risk because someone is filling. You're not leaving, net empty.
Yeah.
And I think the final piece that I'm hearing when we're watching some of the community segment is that the goalie can position themselves in a way that they can cover lanes better and not just always stay in the center of the goal. If you know that they only have one pass option on nest, you can move up to the cubes and now you can push them a little faster if they're if they they only have one pass option. So either they reset or they pass. Now it's right there. You can push it a lot faster.
It comes down again to almost the whole permagoalie idea. As you improve, you're able to pull out a goal more and more. Your first day in the game, if you're playing goalie, yeah, you might be sitting in the goal the entire day because you don't really know how to move around. You're just trying to grab the disc. And as you get better, you're able to start moving farther forward in the arena while still playing defense until the point that you're actually playing offense when your team's on offense instead of just waiting for a clear. But then when you come back at high level, a lot of people still, if they're on defense, they're playing permagoalie. And it's like, okay, I get it. You are on defense, so you should have a goalie. That doesn't necessarily lock you down to the goal, though. You can keep moving around and look for those positions that you can be in that's better than being in the goal. Yeah, you do have to watch out for those lanes. You have to watch for backboards. You have to watch for shots, for cut passes, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on, and it can be hard to really get it down. The farther you push forward, the more risk there is and the more things you have to watch out for. But you don't necessarily have to be right at that center block in the goal as a goalie.
Sure. Anything else you want to add, Doc? Oh, I don't think I hear you right now.
I don't hear him.
Get Spark,
There.
get recording those files, submit them via this form, join the Discord server. I know TTao's gonna drop that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and we got Lelenthal is gonna be playing some games here on this same channel in about 15 minutes. So she'll be going live. Definitely stick around for that. Hang out. Shout out to Viridis Media for helping us out, giving us a home, and helping us out in all kinds of ways. Big shout out to Gilligan and Queen Zyla. And we've got some other folks you'll be hearing about that are coming on the crew, helping us out with some layouts and other things.
Sure.
Alduine, anything that you want to plug or like make sure that folks know about?
No, not really. I'm in the market for a team again. If there's any diamond people out there, but other than that, I'm just chilling.
Sounds great. And I wanna end on one thing, which is you talked about rotating goalie. It works really well when you have like multiple really good goalies or multiple really shitty goalies.
When your goalies are around the same skill level, if you have someone who just has 5% higher on their save rate, you might want to just go with that person. Again, it comes down to percentages.
Sure. If you have one standout goalie,
exactly. The best option might not be to have one person learn it.
for sure.
Again, every team's going to be different. Make your own judgment. but I hope that this is some ideas that everyone can consider.
Big time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The art of the goalie. And I love how you frame it. You know, goalie, you're not going to make every save. You're not even going to make a majority of saves. Your goal as the goalie is to make the most saves you possibly can, and sometimes that means jumping out and getting a steal before a player gets a pass. Sometimes it means getting a stun before a player can make a move toward the goal. Sometimes it means just pressuring someone into making a bad play, or just a not ideal play. And so being more active. You know, obviously, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of different styles of goalie, a lot of different ways of doing it. But for everyone out there, consider trying this really active stance. You know, jump out a little bit more, and especially if your teammates or your other folks give you some guff for it, you know, send them to Playmakers, send them to Alduine, and we'll set them straight. So
Yeah.
And beyond that, if you start doing that and you notice all of a sudden you're jumping out on all of these and you're getting no saves now on the scoreboard, keep in mind, if you're jumping out and you're getting that steal before they get there, it's essentially a save, but it doesn't show up on the scoreboard. So for any newer people watching this, just be aware of that. That scoreboard for goalies really is not accurate. There are plenty of times that you get what would have been a goal and you save it and it doesn't count. And so don't go strictly off of that.
Sure. The best way, and we're going to plug this again, the best way to know if you actually have the knife is to watch it in a replay, right?
Exactly.
Like that's when you'll know. That's when you'll know. All right. If there's nothing else, I think this is such a great opportunity to hear from you talking about this goalie. I think it's something that's definitely needed in the community, especially at the lower levels where you have so many perma goalies that, like, it's their whole job to just sit in the middle of block, even when like you're attacking bubble. They're just sitting in their block. I'm like, I'm having a good time. So this is this is great to hear, and I really want to get that information out in the community. It's like, yeah, you know, like dive out every once in a while. You can get some work done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So again, get those files to us. Tell your friends, share, you know, give us some feedback, let us know what you like, what we can do better. We want to bring you guys some fresh Echo meta analysis. So again, thank you, Alduine. Again, thank you, Viridis Media. Stick around. Lelenthal is going to be on in about 11 minutes playing some games.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely stick around for that, and we will see you next week at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. You clear, Doc? Not yet.